If you would turn in your Bibles, Nehemiah chapter 6. Nehemiah chapter 6. And beginning with verse 1, you'll notice there these words. Now it happened when Sanballat, Tobiah, and Geshem the Arab, and the rest of our enemies heard that I had rebuilt the wall, and that there were no breaks left in it, though at the time I had not hung the doors and the gate, that Sanballat and Geshem sent to me, saying, Come, let us meet together among the villages in the plain of Ono. But they thought to do me harm. So I sent messengers to them, saying, I'm doing a great work, so that I cannot come down. Why should the work cease while I leave it and go down to you? But they sent me this message 4 times, and I answered them in the same manner. I want to talk in this session about keep your focus. Keep your focus. Keep your focus. Each of us has something that we're working on in life, something that we're building, something that we are developing, each of us. And you notice that they tried to lure him down 4 different times, and each time he was consistent to answer them in the same manner. You know how children can be sometimes, asking you to do something over and over. Mama, can I have some cookies? Mama, have some cookies. Mama, can I have some cookies? And they'll ask you sometimes so many times that they wear you down, and you just give it to them to shut their mouth because they're getting on your nerves, wearing you out, and you just don't want them to ask you about it anymore. It's like when you're taking that road trip and somebody in the car asks, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? And they can sometimes wear you down from their continual coming. But when you know that something that you're pursuing is right, you never waver. It's going to be the same answer every time. You know why? Because you have to think about it. Asking yourself this question: am I doing it for the right reason? I mean, what reason am I doing this for? You know, I've sometimes talked to pastors that have become terribly discouraged over serving people, and they've given their life to serving and helping them, and sometimes the people that they help the most end up walking out and leaving them, and then they're hurt. And here's the thing that I challenged them about. I said, had you known in the beginning that they were going to leave you, would you still have helped them? Would you have helped them? You see, we help people not because they stay with us. We help people because it's the right thing to do. We help people as an expression of who we are, not based on who they are. And so just ask yourself that. Sometimes people walk out of your life, and sometimes you can be upset that you invested so much of your time, your energy, and your effort of somebody that ended up just leaving you high and dry, leaving you flat. It's not a matter about how they left you and what they did to you. We're responsible for who we are, and we don't want other people based on who they are to change who we are, to pull us down to acting in a retaliatory way to be like them. We are still supposed to be children of God and acting with the character and the nature of Jesus Christ, whether other people are acting that way or not. We still have a call in our life to be the right thing and to do the right thing, not because other people respond appropriately to us, but simply because it's the right thing to do. And here you have Nehemiah. As you know, Nehemiah was the king's cupbearer. Now, you know, back during that time, they would bring the king particular things to drink. You know, with the cupbearer, it wasn't just a server. He wasn't just a butler who was bringing the king's cupbearer. The responsibility of the king's cupbearer, they were like the canaries. You know that they used to send canaries into a mining cave to see whether there was carbon monoxide poisoning there. And if the bird died, they knew that it would kill humans, and so It was the canary bird that they sent in there. This is sort of Nehemiah's role, because Nehemiah had to drink whatever was presented to the king in case somebody was trying to poison the king. And sometimes people would have sent fine wines. Nehemiah had to taste it and see whether he dropped dead, to see whether he got sick. So he's got a really funny kind of a job. You know, he's really in protective services, because he's got to sample whatever is coming to the king for the king to imbibe. So he's there to preserve the life of the king by sampling it and making sure that nobody is trying to poison the king. This is the role of the cupbearer. He's a protector by nature. He's a protector by his calling and his profession. That's what Nehemiah is. He's the king's cupbearer. He's the taster of everything that goes into the king's mouth, to make sure that nobody is poisoning him to snuff his life out. And when he discovered that the walls of Jerusalem were in ruin, it broke his heart. And he was moved with compassion to do something about it. And he was on a personal mission that I'm going to rebuild this wall. And he had served the king with such excellence that the king sent him all of the supplies, gave him everything that he needed, because the walls of a city were so crucial to its security. They were very, very thick walls, high walls that were constructed around the cities to fortify them from attack. Some of those walls were several feet thick. I mean, so wide that chariots could sometimes race on top of the walls of the city. But this was the thing that made the whole city a fortress. You know, we have military bases that are a fortress, but during this time, the whole city had to be fortified. The whole city was a fortress, and the walls were the things that made it a fortress. So if your walls were in disrepair, if they were broken, then it made the whole city, all of the people, the inhabitants thereof, subject to enemy attack. And I think that this is a message to the church today, saying, open your eyes, church, open your eyes, church, because we are sort of like the spiritual Jews who are in exile, because we've been exiled from being able to pray in school. Our walls have been torn down. Prayer is a barrier. Prayer is a protector. But walls are perimeters of safety designed to protect us from various things, from disease, moral decay, ignorance, idolatry, destruction. These are spiritual walls. We have to put up spiritual walls to help protect us from disease and moral decay and ignorance and idolatry and destruction. And when you make an investment in the life of young people, it's as though you lay a stone in the wall every time. You lay a stone in the wall every time that you teach a child to respect authority. You're laying a stone in the wall. You wonder, how do you build walls today? We're not talking about a physical wall, but you build a wall by teaching a child to respect authority, by teaching a biblical principle, by teaching a youth by example. Examples are always clear. They're always clear. Wouldn't it be crazy if I sat before a group of kindergartners and I'm giving verbal instructions, teaching them how to clap, saying raise your hands in a parallel position, striking them together, making a plosive sound? Now, I could say that to a group of kindergartners, but it would be so much easier if I just put on some music and then did this. You teach by example, and then now all of a sudden they get it. Every time you teach a child by example, you are laying a stone in the wall. Every time that you give tithes and offerings, you're laying a stone. Every time you correct a wrong, you are laying a stone in the wall. Every time that you are faithful to your word, you're laying a stone in the wall. Every time that you teach a wayward child that he's a child of the king, that she's a child of the king, you are laying a stone in the wall. Now I want you to get this very clearly. Walls are designed to protect, and bridges are designed to connect. Walls are designed to protect, And bridges are designed to connect. We need both. We need both. We need both. The followers of Jesus Christ, we need walls to protect us from the enemies that are in our world. And then we need bridges to connect us to allies. And so everything, if it's going to remain safe, you have to understand where Nehemiah is. He's in a city, and you fortified yourself with these walls. You know, safe computers, they have what you would call firewalls to protect you from viruses and certain hacking. You create firewalls. It's a safety net for you. Have you ever noticed how little children, they use their mama or their daddy or their big brother or their big sister as their wall? You know, they be talking about, I ain't scared of you. And you know, looking behind, you know, their daddy. They talk big when their dad is there, when their mama is there, when their big brother is there, when their big sister is there. And they're using that as their area of protection. But here's my question to you. What do your walls look like? What do your walls look like? Because remember, the walls are for protection. Bridges are for connection. What do your walls look like? What do your walls look like? What do your walls look like? And I want you to think about that. What do the walls that are in your life look like that will safeguard your life from other destructive things? What do your walls look like? You see, we need walls to protect us from certain things. We need walls, for example, to protect us from lust. Lust. We need walls to protect us from lust. What kind of lust? Lust of the flesh, that we might call pornography. You need walls to protect you from pornography. You need walls to protect you from the lust for power. You need walls to protect you from the lust for wealth. You always need somebody in your life that helps to keep you grounded. You need people in your life who help to keep you grounded. Those become our walls. So you see, the Africans have a saying that it takes a village to raise a child. The village is your wall. They're a part of your protection in your own life. And so we have to use all of our protection. My question is, what do your walls look like? What do your walls look like? What do your walls look like? What do they look like? And remember, we need walls to protect us from lust, pornography, the lust for money, wealth, the lust for power. We need walls to protect us from idolatry. You know what idolatry is? Idolatry is anything that is placed above the one true God. Anything that is placed above God. Now, idolatry also occurs whenever you look down on the fruits of your own labor of something that you have created and then you worship it. Then you start worshiping the very statue that you carved and you worship it. Another understanding of idolatry, idolatry is immoderate attachment to or devotion to something. When you assign to another thing or a person the devotion that only belongs to God, that's idolatry. That is idolatry. That's idolatry. I've seen people make idols of their children, idols of their girlfriend, their boyfriend, idols of their spouse. So you have to be careful about what you make an idol in your life. So remember, we need walls to protect us from lust. We need walls to protect us from idolatry. We need walls to protect us from fornication. Fornication is any sex outside of marriage. Any sex outside of marriage. Did I say any sex outside of marriage? That's fornication. So we need walls to protect us. We need walls. So when you get tempted in that area, what's your wall? What is your firewall? What's your firewall? My younger brother, C. Elijah, whenever he was, he had limits for himself. And he knew as a firewall that there's going to be no action below the belt. His belt was like his firewall. I mean, he's just, because you know how fun people are. And that was his firewall. That was his firewall to keep him safe from fornication. You have to create a firewall for yourself. What's your wall to keep you from lust, from idolatry, from fornication, from tempting Christ, You need a firewall to keep you from tempting Christ. You know what tempting Christ is? Tempting Christ is asking God to do something that is inconsistent with his nature. Take these stones and turn them into bread. You remember when Satan tempted Christ? He was asking Jesus Christ to do something that was inconsistent with his very nature. And Jesus had to answer him with the scripture that man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God. He was asking God to do something that was inconsistent with his nature. You tempt Christ when there's somebody that you don't like on your job and you say, Lord, strike them dead. You have to realize it's a part of God's creation too. You may not like them. They may have issues and problems and all of that. And I know that there's some people that you really wish were just wiped off of the planet. You wish that they were a hump in the ground. You wish that they were just not here. And sometimes, sometimes if we don't wish death on them, we wish a really bad illness, at least a terrible car wreck that will put them out of commission for several months. But see, if you can't ask God to do something that is inconsistent with his character and nature. So you have to have firewalls. How do I guard myself? What are the walls in your life look like to guard you from lust and from idolatry and from fornication and from tempting Christ? And the fifth one is from murmuring. What do I use to keep my firewall from murmuring? Murmuring is negative talk. Murmuring is complaining. I've taught you this 1,000 times, that whenever you complain, complaining nails you to your problems. Do you see these 5 things here? Lust, idolatry, fornication, tempting God, and murmuring. All of these are the 5 sins that kept the children of Israel out of the promised land. These 5 sins. These same 5 sins keep us out of the promised land of the things that God has designed for our life today. And that's why you have to have firewalls to guard you against lust, idolatry, fornication, tempting Christ, and murmuring. Isn't it interesting that he would put murmuring there, the same category with idolatry? When you run in your mouth, always finding a problem with every solution? When you're just so pessimistic, negative about life, negative about people, always want to talk about a person's weaknesses? I mean, a person could have done 1,000 positive things, and you happen to deal with the 3 negative things that they've ever done in your life. That's just murmuring. Always, you broke, you in the wilderness, you don't have any money, and somebody feeds you, and now you start complaining about the quality of the food. And you didn't have anything to eat on your own. You could have been starving. I mean, when you are starving, and if somebody burns a toast and invites you to breakfast, I don't know about you, but I know how to deal with burnt toast. I burned the last 2 pieces, and I'm like, I wanted my sandwich. I took a knife. It's amazing when you don't have but a little how creative you can become. But I refuse to stand there and murmur and gripe and complain and bellyache. I'm like, Lord, I'm going to make the best of this situation. If I've got to go, I'm going to enjoy the journey. I'm not going to let this ruin my day. So God can bless people who are not murmurers. I'm just telling you, murmuring, griping, complaining people always have something to complain about. Always. Touch your neighbor. Say, I know that person. I know them. There are some people that regardless as to what goes on, it could be a wonderful movie, a wonderful book, and they will find the one thing. They act as though it's a spiritual gift finding something wrong with everything and everybody. They think like that is not the gift of discernment. It is not. That's a delusion. And they think that they're operating. No, it's murmuring. Where they start murmuring and complaining. What are your firewalls? You need a wall against negative, complaining people in your life. You need walls. You need walls. And then, see, remember, you need walls to protect, but you need bridges to connect. And it becomes a sin for us, hear me carefully, it becomes a sin for us to build a wall in a place where we should build a bridge. Because not everybody who's around you is your enemy. Who's around you ought to be community. It ought to be a beloved community. And we need bridges to connect us to allies. We need bridges to connect us to allies. Now, here are some bridges that will connect you to allies. Forgiveness. If you have unforgiveness closes relationship. It binds, but when you forgive people, it opens and restores relationship. If somebody has done something wrong, you need forgiveness. Apologize and just forgive each other. But forgiveness creates a bridge between allies. Forgiveness. Here's another thing. You need to connect with somebody. Serving. When you serve people, you connect with them. When you serve people, you connect with people. If you really want to connect with a person who's in the world, find a way to serve them. Serving connects you with people. It connects you with people. When you see a need and serve that need, it connects you with people. It connects you with people. Just when you serve, if you see a need and respond to the need, it somehow has this uncanny ability just by serving. I told you when the bishop, I was invited to a banquet, and they beckoned for me to come to one of the tables where some really wealthy people were sitting. I felt so wonderful. Now, I wasn't used to this, where I was the brokest one at the table. And so 2 billionaires are here. I mean, I'm like, okay. But you know what I said when I was sitting there, and I knew one of the billionaires. I wanted to know the other one. And so I'm sitting, and I said, Lord, I said, I believe that everybody, no matter how much money they have, everybody has a need. It may not be the same need as everybody else, but I said, everybody has a need. And I sat there at the table, and I said, Lord, show me a need. And I the Lord knew exactly who I was talking about. I didn't want to point. They say it's rude to point. But I said, Lord, show me a need that's in his life that I can fill. Show me something that I can do to serve him. Just show me what I can do to serve him. And as soon as we finished eating our meal, he asked for a cup of coffee. And they brought his coffee, sat it on the table. But for some reason, we're in a fine establishment. They bring this man's coffee in a paper cup. And I saw him take a sip, and he quickly put it down because it was burning his fingers. Immediately, the bishop sees a need. I get up immediately, and I go to the maitre d', and I say, listen, can you get me a ceramic cup? And he gave me a ceramic cup, a clean cup. I brought it back to the table, took his paper cup of coffee, poured it into the ceramic cup, and sat it down in front of the billionaire. Now he looks up at me, and he says, thank you, Bishop, or is it Pastor? I say, it doesn't matter what you call me as long as you call me. And it was interesting. There was an empty chair next to the billionaire. I wasn't sitting in that chair. I was across the table. But he looked at the empty chair and pointed to it, and he said, sit down. For the next 30 minutes, this man downloaded to me some of the greatest wisdom that I have ever received in my life. And I got all of that wisdom for the sake of serving a cup of coffee. Just serving created a bridge. I was across the table. I had no connection with him. until I saw a need and served it. When I served, I created a bridge with a wealthy guy. And for the cost of a cup of coffee, let me tell you what that little cup of coffee led to. Listen, I've been out on his yacht. He had two of them. One was like a Rolls Royce, the other was a Cadillac. I chose the Rolls Royce. But it all came because I saw a need and served the need, and it made a connection. Forgiveness creates a bridge. Serving creates a bridge. Number 3, kindness creates a bridge. Kindness. Just being polite. Just sometimes smiling at somebody. You'd be surprised somebody can just smile at you from across the room. And I know people are having conversations like, I know he ain't looking at me. I know. And you'd be surprised. Just a kind look, just pleasantness, just somebody smiling at you actually creates a bridge and can connect two people. See, you have to realize, what are my bridges? What are my bridges? What are my bridges? How do I build allies here? Just a smile is one of the quickest paths to being able to connect with people. People are drawn to smiling people. They're drawn to smiling people. I mean, if you are going into a room and there's a smiling person here and there's an empty chair, and a grumpy person here and there's an empty chair, which one are you going to choose? See, smiling creates a bridge. Just kindness, politeness, smiling. Forgiveness, serving, kindness. Here's number 4, common interests. Common interests. It creates a bridge. You have a child that's in the 3rd grade? I have a child that's in the 3rd grade. Oh my goodness. Does your child ever come home and ask you about this and that? And all of a sudden, just because you have a common interest, common passion, common values, just because you have something in common, it creates a bridge. Does that make sense to you?
Thank you for watching Power for Living with Bishop Dale C. Bronner. Join us again next time for Power for Living, where revelation is power. Power for living.